All right, so I wanted to talk about this mostly because I saw, let's see, what was his name, the slow mo guys, so Gavin and his friend, who I have forgotten the name of right now as I am currently recording this, so I am so sorry. But I was thinking about it for a tribo sonoluminescence or whatever the hell it was, or when something impacts. It's like, for what it's worth, we have to talk about an elephant in the room. So you have air compression heading towards something, right? Then you happen to have a large amount of static movement, so static electricity movement. Then that happens to create a collapse of electromagnetic fields in that given area, which then happens when it impacts. It compresses two different electron orbit areas to create an electron existing in a virtual area orbit, which then heads to a lower or higher orbit, respectively, thanks to kinetic phononic movement. Now, that's compression, right? Standard compression to a reduction of heat, which is increasing the energy, but then that creates, of course, its own covalent, but then there's a large amount of movement, and then from covalent, you get a very huge, kind of fun but not so fun moment of a breaking of those chemical bonds. Now, breaking chemical bonds elicits electricity, which then also, movement anyways, creates a lot more, photons. So it's like, hey, we already know why this happens, but you can control it with a little bit of extra oomph, so to speak, meaning energy put in, as a resonance and a few different phasing, for light emittance here, because that's all we're talking about. We're talking about physical light emittance. That's it. Yeah, no, phononic light emittance is what we're talking about. But if you happen to introduce electrical, so electrostatic and electromagnetic fields in a given area, you can create an even better effect. If you happen to create just a few different light wavelengths, you can actually force a alignment of those and movement therein, so stalling, so this is node antinode kind of points of electrons in their orbit, which then of course can be hopped forward and backwards in a tunnel-like process from virtual to non-virtual orbital points. Now, that's a very easy way to get away with effectively creating your own version of a non-plasmified, non-compressed, superconducting-like material that happens to emit a lot of light while it does that. The thing is that it's a fun thing that a lot of people might not know at first, right? It's like, wait a second. So as it goes from a higher orbital or in between, it can tunnel to another orbital that is actually real versus a virtual, and then move along that. But of course, it takes energy. So the energy from that light getting emitted is your waste, right? And so you remove resistance by creating light. Now, isn't that cool? Isn't that awesome, right? So, but it's like, all right, but you have to put energy into it, and of course it gets warm to a degree. It depends. It's like, how small do you want to get it, and how controlled do you need to have it? That kind of thing. So, nothing is not going to be here, happening that doesn't break, anything other than your minds. No physics were broken here. That kind of thing. You know what I mean? The kind of thing that makes people angry. You're like, how did I not think about that? This guy's a joke. He could never. Right? But I'm like, yeah, you're just stupid to me. I don't really have to care about you. Right? Like, you're dumb. I've actually worked on this as many different parts of my concepts and many different things. Like, this is one of my superpositional qubit ideas. Is like a snap for me, But like, nevertheless, it's like, okay, for moving on from that, I saw within the the whole side load, all those videos, there's this guy that comes up with inertia as energy pressure gradient from quantum vacuum field of inertia hypothesis from Hamdos MR. And then it leads over to the zendo.org thing, right? And I was like, okay, so the reading this is kind of rough, because I'm like, okay, so you don't know what these words mean, but you honestly speaking, could just be from a different, country. English might not be your first language. Totally doable, 100%. But he might have some good math or whatever, right? Something like that. You know what I mean? Kind of like what you guys think about with me, except I'm actually right and you're wrong often. That problem. It's like you can't make resistance turn into something that tunnels electrons by increasing heat and cooling it and phasing it right with electrical input and a rotational electrical input. You suck. Stop talking about your Lemke flow current. This is not allowed. And you cannot use light. This is not okay. Yeah, well, really. Yeah. Anyways, moving on. It's like, all right, so inertia remains one of the most enigmatic issues in physics. No, it's not. It's really not. He talked about like this fucking damn it. I'm gonna go into his fucking Unruh effect. So it's like there is this thing called the Unruh effect, and I'm like, okay, so the Unruh. So no, wait. So your sensors happen to have a certain amount of thermal input that you put into it that are for sure little points of increased degrees of disorder and thermal. Right? And then you Doppler shift yourself up into having quantum foam then get registered as a radiation thermal-like event. Right? Standard stuff. Except these are really layers of different energies and different densities with your force carriers and forces, of which then you intersect a type of vibrational resonance, effectively, if you will, that connects to that quantum given frequency of your fields. Right? And so then you register it as a Unruh effect. And it's like, inertia is so hard! I don't know, it seems like you guys already figured this out. Doesn't seem that hard. It's like, all right, so let's go with the holographic one. So underneath, there's this curvature, so mass boson interaction, and then there's this little dot that likes to move forward, and you have this like compression of area with a whole bunch of other things. Now, this could be like a ball, but it's a multitude of different shape, actually, possibility balls that changes, of course, as it moves. Now, there's a lowered, very much vacuum-like pressure of energy that, of course, trails behind and then fills in gaps. And then there's this increased Doppler, increased pressure. It goes around, all that. Phonons and bosons and fucking positive and negative, neutral, so on. What is it? Nuclear, weak and strong forces, stuff like that. Standard bullshit, right? All really easy stuff. But it's like, hey, I attract a little bit more like that. I have lower resistance this way. And I was looking at the action lab. She's like, it's not lower resistance. It's lower resistance when it's ionized. So it's a lower path of resistance to ionization. So you're wrong, actually. But like the way you describe that is still technically correct. It's just like for layman people, correct. You are correct. But for this, you are not. It is a lowered resistance to ionization, which means it's a lowered resistance. Much like inertia is a lowered resistance towards that which is already happening, meaning momenta here continues to follow along a path of least resistance to a point which it can go to, with pressure behind and around, squeezing it towards that given point. You've already seen this. I don't see why you wouldn't basically just say it's that. Meanwhile, he's like, isotropic. And I'm like, okay, so your version of supersymmetry, but you can't use supersymmetry. Okay. And there's a virtual photon. Okay, virtual photons are technically possible. And also, I've used isotropic before, because technically speaking, it's a flip of a given equation, which that works. And the way I use it, it works for that. Sure. When you do algebra, you can move things around. That's standard shit. But if you were to think about it more like the actual forces in a three-dimensional moving thing, multiple intersecting chunks of matrices that recursively go down to a single point, like you should, because that's obviously what's happening. I can't do that. Well, keep up then. I'm going to explain this to you. Yeah, that kind of thing, because I'm like that. That's how I'm like. That's really, I'm like, shut up, child, in the classroom. Learn to listen. This is clearly what's going on. It doesn't matter how hard you try and pretend this is like something else. That's all it is. Alright? However, we can't sense it that way. So we go, box! And electromagnetic field and electricity and some light photons. And I will never do that to anything I smash, and I can't put anything right there to see if it changes anything. So no matter what, it definitely solved our fucking positive and negative antimatter problem. And I'm like, you didn't though. You didn't do that. You didn't account for any of your quantum foam in your own Doppler shift and any other fucking change in those sensors, let alone any and all other disturbances and how it gets amplified. You know, to the point where you then store that data and move it. You didn't account for that. Why didn't you account for that? Because I did. Well, I can't because there's a upper and lower total possible in many of these areas all at once. Oh, is there? Really? Then only you can do that. That sense and that detect and that fucking experiment of particle smashing. Only you, the big elite 10,000 plus people. Only you can. Yeah, we don't ever believe people can absolutely decide to form cliques and then basically fuck each other over by having, like, oh, I don't know, not enough oversight to account for enough. You know, that kind of thing. I don't like your tone with me. I'm gracious enough to watch. Fuck you. Uh-huh. I'm sure the other ones that even have the fucking PhDs would love and always explain how much they agree with me, but would definitely get retaliated against for sure. And I don't get retaliated against. It would still do it, you know, on YouTube or anything else, right? Anyways, so we're gonna move forward to, all right. So there's a nice attraction. So, all right, so but it's like, no, the cast dynamical. I love dynamical. God, dynamical. It's dynamical. Sure. No, like dynamic is what the word is that you're looking for, man. For what it's worth. Yeah, it's dynamical because coal is a similar to dynamic, or it's adjacent or performing a similar activity to dynamic. Okay, that's how that works. That's what the suffix means. Okay. But I love how fucking stupid that shit. It's like, okay, well, it's clear I understand what he's trying to say. Anastrophic. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it could still technically be correct. It could still, look, depending on what we're talking about here, the word still will work. But that's because your sensors are digital and you're shitty at those skill issues that you have. So I imagine you'd act, right? Right? Anyways, virtual photons. I love that one. You know, they're theoretical at best thing, but technically they can happen. You know what I mean? Like any photon that's heading one way should have an opposite reaction and direction to it, which could technically be a virtual. But for what it's worth, virtuals we already know can happen. And we can even break down information that which has mass, at least, you know, into a collapse that then changes along with other fields here into like an electron or neutron or something else. So we do know of what the hell that is, right? And in fact, you can do the opposite. We've already proven that to be the case. And I did a whole stream about that. The guy was like, we went backwards in time. And I was like, no. Here's a highly specific setup for this given, quantum experiment that basically just proves thermodynamics works at a fucking quantum level. He just broke down into a virtual informational state and then popped it back up, and then voila, it's the same given particle. And it's like, it's really kind of not though, is it? And then they change that particle. We got something from nothing in quantum foam, you can grab it. And it's like, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, they proved that. They already proved it. That's already proven. That's not a big fucking whoa. That's like 3 years ago, bro. Get with the times. Come on. Like, we're already moving past that. Let's go. Let's go. It's like Casimir's like, oh, okay, so depending on a couple of different ways that you perceive something, mass can become negative. And here I tricked you in the way that you happen to view this with this sensor data and how it interacts with you phononically to produce a given energy from outside to then lift and reduce perceptual weight, which is the equivalent to the buoyancy or thrust at a very small level, which is fine. Okay, but that's what the Casimir effect really technically says. It's like virtual photons mean energy went somewhere, isotropically means it's kind of flipped. But it's like, you're clearly a holographic guy. Like, you prefer holographic idea of like the whole universe is holographic, right? Versus it's all like many things moving, right? So it's like, for his mind, I'm gonna go like, and it divots underneath and it goes like this. Right? Because it's all on a tracer board kind of thing and everything's flat earth up in this bitch. Right? And I love the holographic principle. It's actually really good. Depending on what we're talking about here. That's why I call it with layers. So like, there are different layers of different vibrational density frequency forces that of course change their energy and their energy type and interactions they're in. And so how they move and what's around in their environment in an arena of energy that is never self-contained, right? And so like little tiny points that are always happening are always going to move through and always still head towards a given point of direction, okay? And that's fine. But it's like, why that direction? We hate that direction. Fuck that direction, egg or chicken here. And I'm like, oh, right, yeah, I know, okay, so, How about there was an empty three-dimensional space that you refuse to acknowledge, and then you expand into it? How about that? My quantum ass refuses! We have never seen light decay! Light decay! How about interference waves? This is a thing. So, going back to the slow-mo guys and Gavin and his friend there, which I really gotta fucking remember his name. This is so fucking terrible. I'm so sorry, dude. Point is, though, when the glass shatters, it creates a bunch of this shimmer effect, right, to the light that's reflecting. Now, that's vibrations that are holding the glass together and making it much stronger in those moments, and even bonding it together temporarily with some heat and even oxygen and nitrogen as it tries to come in, right? Now, that's super cool, but you know what it means? It means you're wrong. Light then changes as it does that in a bunch of different waves and constructively and destructively interferes as space and time in these small little itty-bitty quantized fields and, energies that are not possible to ever be perfectly full, infinite dense. That's impossible. So of course it has to fucking have an empty nothingness spot you can't measure very well. Which you said mathematically you can't do, because my way of doing this only allows for this. And therefore my math is like that, and only this is happening. Which I said, skill issue. I'm moving forward. I don't care. You clearly don't want to do logic. I can't talk to a person that doesn't want to admit that they're not perfect. That's the thing. That's you. I'm clearly not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. And I am making mistakes probably with you believing I give a shit at all about what you think about my ideas. I just wanted to talk about this, right? That's the problem for you. You know what I mean? It's like, wait, shut up. Shut up. I don't care. Look, the fact of the matter is, the shimmer thing is that, and it's keeping itself stronger for a little bit before it finally gives in, right? But that's a resonance that it happens to get briefly. And you can see as it goes and it spreads out that it creates layers in its own right until it eventually destroys its resonance harmonics here of keeping itself strong. Now, it would be a real shame if we were to say that because of all of these panes of glass and it got darker on the way in, that like a rotating resonance recirculation tunnel property of black holes could happen, making it very black. And then it collapses a compression of space-time onto itself that, of course, keeps it getting stronger and stronger. And it continues a rotational convection-like moment that never changes it from never becoming a donut. Wait, so it just never turns into a donut? Correct. That's what I'm trying to tell you, even though I might not have said it perfectly. I never make mistakes, right? Anyways, point is, as light propagates and we Doppler shift, and then that light happens to be a field. Let's go with a big old circle kind of and then it goes and that's a shock wave and it does its thing. And then we're over here and it's so this angle over here is then from that point going to go yeah, except we missed that point of that light. So we're actually only getting this part over here that then started traveling like that towards us, which then curves it and angles it like that. You know what I mean? Good old twisty maneuver there with the good old-fashioned non-polarization as it then creates polarizations from different angle points of interference. These are called vector and 4D spaces, which you have to remember photonically works, along with phononically too, with all the interstellar media that for sure happens to be there, which you don't ever filter out. This is probably it's like I love doing their I love doing all of their little micro expressions and everything. Just fucking this is exactly what's going on with I knew if they were to ever listen to this and they're actually shitty people, get them every time. It's so fucking easy. They like to do the strained smile. I'm not like this. Don't look. Shut up. Standard stuff like that, right? But we're going to move on because it's alright, so that then has gravitational waves, that Doppler, and then redshift, and then elongate. Because it's hey, guess what? I decreased the total distance, and then I elongated the distance. Fuck you! I changed my frequency. Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, no. Except I also changed the angle and the lens, meaning refraction and refraction. So reflection, refraction, diffraction, right? But we also block some of it while we do that, and it takes energy, and then it gets a little bit more energy. Lots of stuff like this with neutrons, neutrinos, different charge, phonon waves, like a bullet hitting a pane of glass, maybe. But on big, massive scales with neutrons and neutrinos. They're rotating too. There's a compression wave of a given galaxy, one wave versus another wave. It happens to elongate more of that, and it thrusts that compression with that gravitational well field to then have some of it escape more one way than another way that it was already traveling. Recursive. It seems to repeat itself. You can never do that. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Well, no, it could. Yes, it could. Yeah. Yeah. Now, granted, that means you don't need a rotating universe, although it's probably in there too. Now, granted, that means it's got conservation of informational energy, momentous stuff. You know, that means there might have been some fields there for resistance, like a vacuum field that held it constantly more open. Like in my universe hypothesis theory. That is different than a quantum vacuum pressure. Yes. Well, anyways, if you ever want to watch that video, go right ahead. If you don't, that's fine, because I don't give a shit about what you think. The basic principle is information got made to happen. So it knows possibilities that could be there, and it says, well, then I'm going to remain here as a thing that's possible. Now that creates its own virtual big old universe up to however big it is. You know what I mean? And then, hey, something happens to tiny little infinite, but it's not actually. You should really listen to that. Yeah, you should really listen to that fucking thing. It starts from nothingness. Granted, it's something, but it's the only thing. Sucks to be all of you losers. How come you didn't think about that? That's a semantic. Nah, it's not. Your sensors are skill issues, not mine. Why don't you stop skill issuing here, bitch? Jesus Christ. What the fuck? Why don't you just get some good and do some work? You know, standard bullshit, right? Because it's like, I'm not going to listen to a bunch of naysayers that never even did the work for my ideas in the first place for those previous videos. Explain everything now. Do it for hours. Nah, I'm good. Shut up. Learn that you're wrong. You know what I mean? But, like, nevertheless, it's still this inertial theoretical, and it's like, yeah, but like, fact of the matter is there's a lower resistance, and then there's energy that can slip in behind, and effectively it bounces off, like I put in my Tumblr post. Which is here's why, you know, this vacuum energy, which is not vacuum energy actually, happens to happen. And here's how a nothingness force gets made. And it destroys different materials under heat, and its movement, boundary layer, Cohen, the effects that effectively create that phononic and electromagnetic and very strong nuclear force changes that break down that material and those elements. You know, it's all in there. You just have to read it. But it sucks that most of you don't read those things. You know, I'm so excited to read until it's something I don't like, and you're not big enough, and fuck you. You know, that's standard. I'm just going to hurt you and poke and stab and twist. You know, standard shit. Like, I'm not transactional. I don't think of you like you're not big enough. And I shouldn't listen to you. And you don't have this whatever. And wait, as the person that only has at most 15 views right now as of time I'm recording, don't think the same way and for sure see the merit of what it is you're saying as you critique my own ideas. Yes. You don't, huh? Let alone the bigger YouTubers that are like, I'll never turn into a monster if I'm successful enough and go continue being successful for long enough. Are you sure? Because you look an awful lot like you've done that. Now I'll go over to this thing and look at it. Oh yeah, no, yeah. Do you have any like way I can contact you? The big social, parasocial douche fucks you are that need your entire crowd and audience here to like you that hard, so that way you then go on to their website and see all the little things about you and get you more money. Should I also go there and see if maybe you can help me that way instead of like, you know, just being a person? Maybe I should like pay you a lot of money to finally be able to chat with you, like in a Patreon or something. Maybe I should spend a lot of money to go show up somewhere in real life and talk to you when you're behind a microphone and a big stage where you're no longer a person. Who knew? Is it suddenly dawning on you how you're not anymore that thing? And oh, but by the way, I have a lot of designs that clearly showcase that they're really good logic, reason, and definitely doable. That could save a lot of people's lives and ultimately make a lot of things a lot better. I guess you'll have to actually help me to do them and put money there and like go all my career and transactional and business. And no, we can't spend to the masses one thing or another that we said and be hypocritical like all the other ones, as we already are being hypocritical. I didn't meet up with you and then find myself doing... It's just a reference to the description of my most recent video. If you got to this point, please hit it. That like and subscribe and comment, please. You know, go ahead, hypocrite. Don't worry. I'll understand it. Okay? It's all good. Of course, I've got to get somewhere too, so hey. I just want to make a fucking rocket ship to go colonize another planet, which is one of the reasons why I had to think about this a lot harder than this motherfucker ever probably did, to be fair. And a lot of the other YouTubers most likely. I got into real deep motherfucking dives there. All they're gonna have is some symbols and fucking math. And I'm gonna like, too. And I'm not gonna have a problem with it. It's like, oh wow, it will work as I described in my fucking video this time and 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 all of these other times. Oh no. No. Like I didn't know possibly at all. Are you sure? Look at that's you. I'm just immediately flipping in and switching in to that. Right. Standard thing. I do it all the time. It's clearly how you're acting. Standard shit. You know, those ones that are really shitty people. Standard gabagoo shit. I challenge. I don't want to help. I'm not a person. Really, I do stalk you so much and all that. And then, like, dude, you have your own life. But also, you are like that. That part of you is still there, and you are very fucking weird like that. And it's like, hey, I'll just directly, boom, blunt style on my Xenon Reality Hub subreddit. Like this, you know what I mean? Like, it's like this sexual stuff too. Boom, get roasted. I don't care. I have a sexual inclination playlist. Get fucking wrecked. I don't care. I have a whole bunch of arguments that unless you can actually fight those, you've got nothing you can do. It's like, I'll just totally deny all of the evidence that is against me, and actually that makes a lot of your shit better, actually, and then how my evidence doesn't actually work. He can destroy my evidence trying to claim he's wrong. No! I gotta look at all of that that's there. Yeah, against you. It's not against me. It's because people will hate you and they don't have logic and they'll never look and they'll never reason and they'll never understand past what they emotionally hate and see it as initially. They are uncomfortable with something and so they'll just go along with me saying that it's bad and all the things are wrong. Just imagine there's some douchebag that's him just standing over there. Yeah, just like over there. You know, Big Brother watching. Fucking garbage, dumb, fucking Gen Z millennials more getting trapped up in this fucking bullshit. Anti-fab, addicted to porn. All the same fucking ones. They're all the same. They're a cult too, and we're not talking about it because we're like, we got bigger fish to fry, kids. But it's like, fuck. Shit. And they all joined together to go after and make Trump get elected. I know. Yeah. And you helped them. Yeah. That's great shit, isn't it? Yeah. Good on you. You have no consequences or plays here that are going on that happen to blow back on you. I like the CIA that had the same problem. Hey, yo, kids, are you sure you want to do that? I see what you're doing there in influencer land, you stupid dumb fucks. Stop it. It's like, no, they wouldn't feedback, infiltrate, what is this? What? They could just pay them to fucking make it more apparent for you because you run in similar circles. It's fucking easy as shit to targetedly do that. That's like fucking easy as shit to do that shit to. You can even plant people in your own goddamn fucking, like, here's some editors, here's some this, here's some that, I'll do the research for you, whatever, you know what I mean? I'm from, like, military, or I have this background. Bob Ross certainly didn't have any CIA individuals that stole all of his shit. See that face? That's you. That's why I'm smiling at you doing that. Subtle little things. I do it all the time. Like, it's fun. Anyways, point is, I haven't really gone through all of it, but it's like, okay, so inertia fucking inertia is a property of the continuation of something that's already there. It puts a certain amount of energy and it grabs more energy from its surroundings. Everything's doing that. Of course, there's more energy as a result of a vacuum, meaning an empty thing that we then exploded into. But then they don't really like the idea of it being now suddenly no longer, just a flat thing. And then they actually have these problems with viewing things in your telescope that cause these curvatures and destruction of, light. That, of course, for us accelerating then means, hey, we can't see that curvature. You know what I mean? Things get hidden. There's mirages, holographs, all that shit that start to form because there's only direct hitting that seems to work past the point. You know what I mean? So the further away you go, the worse it looks, and appears to be curving and being more three-dimensional. Now, of course, it's the same, and you get closer and closer. The smaller you get, and the faster that gets, the flatter it looks like, but it's not, because you're hitting individual points and multiple different little, things that are all seemingly on this little sheet moving up and down. It's like, that's not actually how that works, and now you're starting to realize that. You know what I mean? Like, hey, don't worry, this Hall effect, remember this electron orbit, there's like this past one that's actually a vacuum of where it used to be. There are four electrons now. It's like, no, there's not. There's one where it's a compression wave, one that it's collapsing towards, and one where it used to be, and one where it is. No, I could never see that result. Only this is allowed. There's actually this now, and there's many electrons, and they didn't just turn into a bunch of field area of effect, influence, and impact, and imparting of energy as an interaction and interference to that which is around. The vacuum field is now only electromagnetic. Like this guy tries to pretend that's not the case. It's just stupid. But okay, now you've even solved your fucking little vacuum inward bound, clear acoustic resonance harmonic pump, as it sends out waves and it goes, this is an inertial dampening, as it inward bound can only emerge as a property with enough things, or if it's a traveling enough and influences, impacts, and imparts enough energy onto that which is around to then gain a sense of mass and bosonic mass transfer as a force carrier. Wow, the math will even check out easily. Wow, why didn't you do that with your sensors? Wow, why are you so angry with this smarmy guy? That clearly sees obvious shit that you should have seen already. I'm not smarter than you. You're smarter than me. You have a PhD. You've already done this. What's the problem? You wouldn't want to look at that guy, right? who's clearly done it, the work, and beat you. Because it was a competition and funding, and only my electromagnetic or light. We can never combine multiple things together. My funding, and it will cool it like this, not your light or that other phononic. Get out of here, you! You cannot work together! You! Forces and more cannot! You cannot combine things to make, electricity move and then emit in a tunnel, and you said... Using resistance and collapsing and, given increase or decrease of resistance in a field gateway effect, turning very much any given, atom into its own superconducting material easily, like nothing. Or it's not really. It still has, there's still some amount of loss. It is what it is. It's very close to a superconductor, but you can do it with any copper and anything. It's on my YouTube already. Like, why not just do that? Why aren't you just not bad and get skill? Why don't you just properly phase it too to autocorrect based upon any given disturbances around it? Like I already explained in those YouTube videos. How to do. So that way it doesn't actually break apart under any outside influence, imparting of energy or impacting of its given current continuation of a situation that has this interference and interaction going on in this contextual arena regime. Don't like those ones? Alright, I can use a different set of words that mean the same thing for you. A dimensional matrix that happens to be in a given, what is that word again? System, almost, right? Should it be a multiple intersecting matrix, like I said? That then has multiple cores and layers with which to, filter out passively and autocorrect given phasing in towards the internal diameter of all the layers of your cable? No. Oh. Bruh! Get some skill! Why don't you get skill, bitch? I did that while I was homeless. I'm not even kidding. I came up with this idea when I was homeless, you fucktard. You can't get me, beaten since it's a competition now. Why don't you just come up with shit when you're in the worst possible moments of your life? You already get a cushy life. Why don't you just go over there, write on your board, do all the work? What's the problem? Am I annoying you now? Suddenly I can't go after you? Oh my god, no. Pity I must have or something? Ah, there it is. Now I have to back off. I'm the narcissist that understands I can't make myself look worse. My reputation here. Well, hold off. He was homeless? I haven't done any work before finishing this video. Like me adding all the fucking institutions that are supposed to help people like me that can actually understand that I'm right and do have enough knowledge for that. And other YouTubers too that claim that they have like a PhD, which they do. I mean, it's not like they don't. But it's like, no, I watch and I read these comments and I swear and all the rest of it. And when somebody asks me, I'm not annoyed because like that's only for collabs. It's only, you can't just treat me like a regular person. You're not supposed to do that. I know I make parasocializations happen for me to be rich and successful, but look, I don't like it when you then treat me like normal and that I'm not special and expect me or any of my followers that you're trying to have like you. Your followers they can't go to other people Isolate them, only watch you. Look at you. That's not fair. You can't do that. That's so fucking shitty. What is this? How do I look bad? You're the bad one. No, you. I didn't do any work and I never investigated, and I just think you're schizo. Yeah, there's not a banner up there for that reason, huh? Crap! I hate. Yeah. Anyways, moving on from talking about you and how like those garbage douche fucks are. If any of you are actually good, here you go. Here's an easy way to understand and describe this to yourself and your equations and your programming and your, basically visual artists that do all the work for you. Most likely to make it so you look cool, that I don't have. And you don't have to spend the time editing because you have editors. Nice camera standing at place, Remember those lines on the teleprompter. Remember to research a little bit, not even me, or what I'm talking about, or what that must mean when I talk about that stuff like that, like I did with this guy. Don't do that. Just completely ignore that. Just don't do anything and just immediately assume I'm wrong. Completely. I'm not wanting you to do that work and like help me, get better or anything, or even me continuing to still do work and get better, like clearly in this video, or I don't know, anything else like that where I show off that I'm still looking and I'm still trying. No. Let's talk about, hey, the inertia is an emergent pressure. Yeah, no, the emergent pressure, which is not what that is, which is not a gradient, and it's still like an interference profile of multiple different dimensional aspects. And then, hey, I trail off as a tiny little virtual and or quantum quasi foamy little particle. And move and then decay as a radiation mirror effect like he talks about. But is it though? It's not really the same. What they're really talking about is a quantum foam, isn't it? But then of course that creates its own given area of pressure, of course, right, as it moves through, then it has a given amount of resistance, but then of course I'm a more neutral particle, so I move through a little bit and I combine, and then I show off the disturbance of the force that I measure. That you must measure only my ways. Only ours. That's only what we accept. For fuck off. Look. Jerk! You are! How come you didn't do any of this filtering? I do filtering. How about your program that only allows for this given interpretation of your results? And they're digital, so they have a hertz rate. So everything is now going to know the math equivalence of hertz rating. Superpositional collapses, eh? A type of supersymmetry that is only allowable like this and cannot be removed by simply changing that which was initially there and perceived like this with your garbage skill issues detector and sensors and experiments. See the anger? I'd have to do so much in all my telescope data. Can you not? Here's a bunch of ways to make it so it is analog, and then you digitize it later. And you can sense it better and detect it better on my YouTube. Now, granted, just imagine I'm sending you, Miss Frizzle here through all of my YouTube channel and just scrolling, because I'm not going to give you anything in annotations. Get the fuck out of here. Do work! Search for it yourself! You can do that yourself! Get over it! This obvious shit. Just go to my channel if you want to. You're obviously not going to click the annotation you didn't want to. You knew that. You're already angry at me. If you were more than willing to do that, you just go to the channel and then scroll through it. That's all you do. You're like the rest of everyone else. The annotation. Oh, I finally finished the video. And then, Look how much I'm making sense. That makes sense. That matters so much. No, it doesn't. it clearly means like a small percentage of you will click it, but like, you know, I get a secondary tab or something. Hopefully, if they, I mean, depending on the years here of YouTube, that literally clicked away from its video. Like, that's such a dick move to the fucking creators, isn't it? Fuck off. Fuck YouTube, man. Like, for real, can we just like calm down here just a little bit? Let's talk about YouTube. YouTube shit. YouTube as a platform is terrible. Search for like various shit that's in my already made YouTube videos. You can't even find them. I've done it with many popular YouTubers, and you can't even find a lot of their videos. Fucking, it's so great, those YouTubes. The searches, if you don't appear on someone's feed, you're basically invisible on the platform. I know, I'm going to be so bad to use the one way I can at least, hey you, fuck off, you like this, you say in your videos you do. You know, that's your whole thing. There's no way you don't like some of this shit that I do. I knew you're there downloading shit. My fucking YouTube page has like fucking, I don't know, 50,000 something. Last time I checked it was like, it was up there. It was already past 20,000, you know, and it's only continued growing. You know what I mean? So it's like my page views are insane. People click on my ass all the time, for real. But it's like, no, and then there's no views here. Why would that be the case? And then these are very, very similar ideas in concept. And then there's, oh my god, I had hackers all the way back when I was in Chandler, Arizona. And then, wow, all these verbatim and fucking more YouTube videos and studies. My god, this just goes on and on and on, actually. That's a whole other thing. But I'll never go through all the ways that they could hack us, like on your YouTube video or any of some of their posts or more that show up. They could absolutely have been looking and listening to you for that long. And you clearly show up, you're very intelligent, and they'd for sure want to stick around, and you're very entertaining. No. Because you don't get enough views. But I'm here. Yeah, you downloaded this, did you? Yeah. I don't publicly see that, so I have to say no. Yeah, and the YouTubers don't have their own same issue with that, right? You know, with like a bunch of people that definitely don't count towards their views, and they certainly don't get a lot of money from it. Yeah. Okay. And you're wrong now still? Crazy. Wrong means factually incorrect in all ways. Incorrect just means you're trying to do, but I got you. You're incorrect. But, and that's you thinking that I was incorrect about what I stated about how the universe here works. Same thing with my idea of inertia as an emergent is not this. It's not. You're saying the same. So getting back to like those virtual photons, with how a photon can break down into a given pressure, right? But it's really more of an emergent in a fucking way. It's like I immediately get created as a given influence and in part of given, energy that then has an opposing force, right? But of course that virtual then means they're trying to say it accelerates it because conversion of radiation and heat, right, is what he's trying to suggest. I don't even have to read the paper. Just the description alone, I already understand what he's trying to do. Which is why it's like electrodynamics and vacuum phenomena for the Unya and Casimir. It's like, no, the Casimir doesn't work that way. The way I described it means it doesn't. The way others describe it too and have measured it, which have never really apparently happened, doesn't work that way either. It's like the way you describe this is not correct because I don't like that description and it's not allowed. Like, yeah, no, I know. Oh, my pillow. Comment. Oh, pillow. That's what it is. It's like, no, the Casimir effect says fuck off, field, bullshit, and little tiny force carrier particles and shit like that with quantum foam equal lower. Literally what I described. I just gave it more actual detail than what its garbage ass says. That's literally what I'm doing. I'm not even kidding, dude. Like, for real. Right? But it's like, same thing here, for what it's worth. For the fucking Unra effect. It's like, look, we are moving towards something. And it's like, yeah, no. So what you're trying to suggest is an emergent force here is a given amount of friction that then happens to burn things and then happens to accelerate it. Right? But it's like, you're forgetting the fact that there has to be an empty spot behind a solid wall there, which my thermodynamics takes it into account. That's right, I have a quantum thermodynamics and the whole thing here. That happens to go, hey, that's a p-value. It forces it to an absolute 0 point that cannot go backwards. So it's like, I remain as this statically fixed thing that did definitely for sure informationally in all ways happen. I'm also in a nothingness adjacent membranic area. Then you accelerate that way because you bounce off of it in a vibrational manner. But that's real fifth dimensional. See, regular spatial dimensions in 5, 7, I don't care amount of Ds are like this at a third dimensional, which is really 3Ds of time here, of back, forward, all that, is like that. It's just our regular 3-dimensional that I just described, but then when you have something that's like that, it's separate. That's right. It's actually 5D. That's separate to us. It deposits something and it's separate. And it's like the only reason why, entropically, your equations say, no, it says it can't. It says it can, theoretically, but we don't know why. Behold, why. Behold, you're wrong, I was right. Behold, I fixed your equations. Behold, shut the fuck up, skill issue. I got it right. Right? That's you laughing to the skill issue haver for what it's worth. Because it's like, yeah, you did. That solves it. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I've had that on my YouTube forever. And nobody wants to look. Oh, wait, no. No, they don't, huh? Okay, yeah. But no, I'm a big YouTuber, and I'm too smart, important, and you're small, and you don't sound right, and I don't like that. You also argue for things that I've argued against that show off I was wrong, and I don't like that. And I might be involved with some of them, maybe. That's an issue you have. I don't see why that's my problem. That's a you problem, not a me problem. That's a you problem, right? But like, hey, anyways, let's move on to. All right, so whatever. But I was right. I was close. Not really. The way that you're trying to do this, dude, doesn't work quite so well. You're in the ballpark. You're just incorrect. You're not wrong. You're just incorrect, right? Like wrong for that. You're just incorrect though, right? Like you're getting there, right? But like you're just incorrect, right? Yeah, it's like, hey, I tried to make a really good dish, we're almost there. You know what I mean? It's a little off there, and then like you would have had an amazing. It's this close, you know. Right? Is what I have to say. I mean, there's some bad presentation here. There's some bad, you know, whatever. You get it. You're incorrect, not wrong. That's what that is. Okay, that's what I would say for the guy. You know, or gal, or whoever number and so on it is that they are. For me, it's more like, hey, I clicked on the thing, the video said something went wrong, and I haven't gotten to it yet, and so clearly I went, like, wait, Emergence is Enigma? I get it, though, you need to get, like, eyes on and all that. Meanwhile, I'm like, eh, same, dude. Fucking as if I don't have the same issue, dude. Right? So it's like, other than that, however, okay, we're having to deal with the fact that it's like, look, you end up having to deal as well with how that given in-run effect that you believe is there that is causing this happens to have a all the way to macro classical physics that for sure emerges and is affecting your given idea in physics for your hypothesis. So it won't work, actually. You have to do a lot more bridging like I've done to be able to get there. It's like, all right, I'll describe this to you many different ways, and you'll probably figure it out from all of that playlist. That's my universe, physics, and so on playlist that I have on my YouTube. It's like you go through a lot of that. It's like you'll probably get to the point where you understand me and why I view that as incorrect, right? Which is okay, because it's like a vacuum field would be so amazing, right? But it's like, it's not, I said it's a vacuum because it's just supposed to be considered like a vacuum. It's not really, it's information. Remember, if you look at that universe like thing and it happens to just have this statically fixed point that's very absolute zero like movement, just anything that's trying to go through is going to stay there, you know what I mean? It's like a super solid, super fluid, super conducting, all the things, so like things just try and pass through, right? But that doesn't change that it uses that to calculate. So possibilities outward as that's information moving backwards and forwards, but it doesn't convert anything, and it's not really fields, it's certainly not pressure. These are possibilities of potential things. Now, potential momenta things that could occur are very obvious stuff to us, but then of course there's a membrane there that's in that it has a bunch of fields from its below the membrane potential land is how I call that, and then you get into the other potential land, which is the non-existent potential, then you have existing potential, then you have gray hole, then you end up into nothingness, real nothingness, no space, no time, no energy, technically. Of course, that means it has an infinite amount of energy and an infinite amount of dimensions and an infinite amount of space because that's all there is. You see, that's kind of the fun part of breaking something down mathematically, but also physics-wise. It must do that. It can't remove what it is, but that's its whole thing. It wants to remove everything that it is. Right? It sees itself as what it is. A nothingness vacuum needs all the... There's a slight alter... this is into my infinite and I'm all the same and it's slightly different and it happens to try and move things. Now, once it starts to move things, what does it do? It creates momenta. A non-existent, eventually, as it swirls and boop, I gain something that's much more potential, right? Now, it's non-existent, most of it falls back until eventually it starts swinging that down and I grab and whoop, I can actually really say as a non-existent, but I have potential. And then it switches to, I have potential, but I'm non-existent. And then I get to gray hole, and then that's a whole bunch of other, that's real gray hole stuff, because stuff's actually there. Then you get to, yes, I am existing, but I have potential. But, then you get potential. It switches, actually. I seem to always kind of forget that one. Yeah, the potential area, because it kind of merges a little bit. When you get close enough to the gray hole, it pops back up to like the membrane area, and then that has to move around. Now, that's a Bernoulli principle. So it lowers its density, as it moves very, very fast, and it, intersects in many different directions until eventually something just so slightly, boop, and it goes, and all of them start moving, right? And then you get to, hey, I've got a little tiny area here, right? Now, that little tiny nugget of a bitch is not even much more than the membrane. We have to build a membrane to get to the point where we have a membrane. Then from the membrane, we have to get to a little bit of something, and then get a little bit higher up into the, dimensional energy there. Okay, this is like Dr. Michio Kaku's energy dimensions, right? But it's much more spatial. So there's that, but that's like, going into itself. You're thinking like a cool fractal almost. When you see those trippy, hallucinatory pictures, it's kind of like that, it's going inwards to something. But of course, if you were to see it, it's more like a sphere, right? But then, of course, it has many dimensions. The whole thing. You gotta really pick up on the dimensional, be able to view it correctly, kind of thing. Hard to do usually. But as you get along and better at it, then like you can kind of see, like from one single perspective, you'd see this thing, right? Basically, is good enough for most people. You know what I mean? So like, who gives a shit? What that means is it falls back there, and then something's coming up, and they hit. They stick together. Now that stick together means that top becomes like a tree and one little branch, and all of it rains down. Nothing's above. Now that forms that membrane into something. That's a little bit extra. I haven't talked about that yet. I'm still working on it. But other things were still popping in, and of course most of the time they just fall back through the membrane. You know what I mean? But if they get close enough and they stick up for long enough, they'll head towards the one thing that happened to stick around permanently as an absolute zero. That's like that superpositional, super solid, super conducting, super fluid thing. That's a infinitely dense point of energy. Like, it's not really dense. It's actually kind of the opposite. And it's not really like got all the energy ever. It's pretty finite. It's a lot, but like, it's still something. You know what I mean? Like, anyways, point is, it moves and it collapses and so on, but it's not really moving. See what I mean? Like that kind of thing where it's like, it looks to its view like it's moving. To outside, it doesn't. You know what I mean? That kind of relativity problem for most of you that you hate in quantum physics for some reason, even though the only way energy moves around is relative to anything in a third and fourth dimensional space with a fifth dimensional balance, like a storage of that given thing that happened, informationally speaking. Fun stuff. Right. Moving on, though, then of course you get the boom, 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 boom. Now, what does that mean? It's like, oh, well, that's calculating. It's calculating, right? Like it's not really seeing anything. It's just meaning possibilities. Here are a thing, and that's how I view that as a calculation, right? It's not storing anything. It's not really observing anything. It's just moving things and saying these are possibilities of things that could be, and they exert a force. Now that force is very empty, right? It's connected to a nothingness through that membrane. Now once that happens, it's like, oh, I can sustain off of what is under and what once was above. So under the membrane and above the membrane, so to speak, for fourth dimension. Cool stuff, but then that forces a very large area to form. Okay? That balloons and it becomes very, very big. Great stuff until you realize reformed. It's not doing it forever. Something happens, right? And then that nothingness from the outside, from that membrane, pulls in and it forces a bunch of energy to condense off into that tiny little point that causes a rapid acceleration, kind of like inflation, that then slows down later and then picks back up as a type of radiative force that corrects with information. Of course, begins to stick around longer and longer as it gains more and more density from behind. Now that is different than what he's saying, but it also solves all of your issue and it changes supersymmetry to other places. There is still supersymmetry, just different. It's more of like a Newtonian supersymmetry. There's a thermodynamic and other things with that versus how they're doing it. It still works how they're doing it, but like if you were to brutally, bluntly state it, it's like, yeah, but despite the skill issue and all that, and the clear, that's just an antagonistic character bit. It's like, no, but to do this, it's like, no, yeah, you clearly have this going on, and all of that is like a meta-analysis of many of your physics and math. Like, it can only work through like this. The way that you describe any of your given observations means this is the only thing that must be going on. And in Bayesian style, fuck you, basically, to that sensor detector, basically meant like, oh, no, I agree that what you found is what you found to a point. But not everything that you found works that way. And everything that you view that and describe that as actually is breaking down, isn't it? To varying degrees. Like, yeah, it was off by an order of magnitude for my neutrinos. That would fuck up your standard model in a way, like a decent amount in many areas. And that's a recursive fuck up. So it goes, and then I have to adjust it. And it's like, Newton here went, and there's no fucking way I have to describe springs and all these other fucking things. And we can't possibly be the center of the universe. These are ridiculous derivative bullshitty equations. Fuck you, how hard this shit is. Fuck off! And it's like, yeah, no, instead if you describe it like this, then it blends and merges and blurs together, mostly because you don't want to really look that deeply into certain interference and merging bubble areas as they vibrate and move, of course, and split off various variations and so on. Which, of course, is like a sour sucker. Right? It's like, I'm sour. That I didn't really think about that. It's like, yeah, no, I know, but, you know, standard stuff. This is normal. Everybody makes mistakes. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I got you, bro. I got you. Don't worry. Like, you're also wrong about your sexualities being so terrible. Oh my god. Shut up. It's not. Deal with yourself. You're normal. You're 8 billion plus of you fuckers. Deal. Come on. Out of 1, bro. 10 million of you probably like this. Get out of here. Fucking stupid. You know what I mean? Like, no, you can only be like this. Yeah, says your government, I guess. Fuck off. Fucking stupid cunts. Jesus, leave it alone. You know what I mean? Like, I only like this. I'm uncomfortable with it changing like that. In my equations, nuh-uh, you can't do that. Meanwhile, they sleep together. They were just really good, you know, guy friends. That's all that is. That's all they were worth. They're just really good guy friends. I swear. You know, they could have been, you know, they could be asexual for all you know, just like a different sort, you know, that kind of thing. Anyways, point is, I don't like it. Shut up. So moving on. Or like, it's like an emergent. I'm gonna have to get a shot on this because it's like what he describes. It's like disturbance of acceleration. It's like that. It's like it's almost like there are people that do actually see my shit and then start fucking using the AI that I, you know. Okay, so this one's fucking wonderful. On my YouTube studio, you can tell it in the preferences to give all of your information to you for any AI, anyone that requests it. And I'm like, oh, I wonder why it's so similar but not correct. I wonder why there are all these other fucking videos coming. I wonder why they found some of these ideas out. And then, like, the LHC even started doing some of it. Why it's a spinning universe, like I added RC test flight for a spinning universe effect that happened to be covered by multiple people much later. Right? Ah, indeed. Yeah. I wonder fucking why. Talking about this back in Chandler, Arizona, like over a decade ago, happened to then have that then be finally, you know. But it's like, no, you can't fucking speculative garbage. Fuck you, Bayesian work, math, fuck off, hate you. And you can be right, and I wouldn't want